Cassie here, welcome back to my channel. Just a quick disclaimer for this video, I am doing a critical reading of the book P.S. I Love You by Jenny Han. And if this is like your favorite book in the world and you just can't stand to see anybody say anything negative about it, then maybe this isn't the video series for you. I will be doing a critical reading of this book, critiquing the things I don't like and pointing out some of the things that I do like. But I want to remind you all that this is not for the sake of just crapping all over someone's work and making fun of it and just having fun laughing at someone for being a bad writer. This is primarily for educational reasons. I am an author and I have watched videos like this myself, and I feel that I learn so much from hearing what people don't like about a book and even like the little details. So I might be getting a little bit critical here and picking on the tiny things, but that's because I think that that helps us all to become better writers and see what not to do, what sounds a little bit off, and how to do it better. So now that that disclaimer is out of the way, let's get back to the reading. All right, so I was really only planning to maybe do like 1 or 2 chapters today, but like this chapter again literally took me like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to read because it's just 1, 2, 3 pages, and it's again just pretty much nothing. Like, she was watching TV with Kitty and talking to her about what she might want for her birthday, for Kitty's birthday, and then she thought her dad was going on a date, but then I guess he wasn't, and then she decided to make a dating profile for him, which is funny because at the beginning of the chapter when she thought he was going on a date, it seemed like she was kind of not sure if she was like super happy about that or okay with it, and now she's making a dating profile for him like immediately after that. So I don't know, weird. But I guess we're gonna hop into chapter 18 and see if maybe something actually will happen in this chapter that has consequences that last more than 5 seconds. That is one of the things that I can't stand about this book and books like this, is there's just nothing, like the story is just basically Lara Jean's everyday life, and it's just boring as hell to read, and I don't get it. Like, she's just sitting on the couch like watching TV with Kitty or watching videos with Kitty, and they're just chatting about random nothingness, and it's like, yeah, that's realistic, but it's boring, and that's why you don't really see stuff like that very much in like books or movies or whatever, or if you do, it's like a second, like, you know, it's like implied that maybe she and her sister have been watching TV for a while because they're in their pajamas and they're eating snacks and they like are watching a movie and it's almost over or something, and then maybe they have a really heartfelt conversation that actually means something, and that's the part that we get to see. We don't need to see them watching the whole movie and like chatting about nothing. We just don't need to see that, and I feel like so much of this book is that, and it's just pointless. Okay, so Peter gets 1 more point in his favor. It's Kitty's birthday, and he picked her up for school, and he brought her flowers, and they said that there was only room for 2 people in the car, so Lara Jean isn't even riding with them. Peter's just bringing Kitty to school, and Lara Jean's taking herself to school, which is really cute of him to do, but 2 things I'm distracted by. One is the fact that I feel like they've just so driven home the fact that like Peter's always so nice to Kitty, and that's like the thing that makes him endearing, and that's cute if it's like one of many things, but when it's like the only thing and lots of the other things are just kind of crappy, then it just gets almost a little annoying to keep hearing about that one thing. It's like, yeah, so maybe he doesn't really listen to his girlfriend very well, and maybe like they don't have anything going for them except that they both think each other is cute. But remember how nice he is to her little sister? Do you remember that? Here's another scene to show you that he's really nice to her little sister. So there you go. Love. And then the second thing I'm distracted by is, what car is Peter driving that only has 2 seats in it, because if I remember correctly, Peter has many times driven both Lara Jean and Kitty to school. So clearly he had a car that could seat more than 2 people, and now all of a sudden he just doesn't, and it's just to make it kind of like even cuter that he's driving Kitty to school, because he's not even just like picking her up too while Lara Jean is there. He's like making a special trip out of it just for her, which is extra cute, but it just doesn't make any sense, because it's like, what car is this? I don't understand. You guys, this book is boring. There, I said it, and I will continue to say it. It's boring. This whole page right here is almost entirely, at least half the page, is just describing what they're eating for dinner, because it's Kitty's birthday and what she wants to do for her birthday, that she's gonna have a sleepover. And now they're eating. There was like a brief comment where Kitty asked what their mom liked to have on her chicken, because they all have different sauces that they like on their chicken, which is kind of relatively interesting, because it's like, oh, they're talking about their mom who died, and that's like sad or whatever. But it's like the rest of all of this is just, there's no plot, there's no overall like story arc. It's just everyday life, and it's Kitty's birthday, and this is what she wants to do for her birthday, and this is what we're gonna have for dinner, and now we're eating dinner. And it's like, I don't care, because what is that gonna matter when I start reading the next chapter? It's not gonna matter at all, because none of this matters. It's just meaningless words. Oh yay, another paragraph about what they're eating, and the fact that Kitty likes her meat sliced thinly, and Lara Jean prefers the thigh of the chicken, and honestly doesn't know why anyone would bother eating anything but the thigh if they had the choice. So that's just riveting literature. I will say there is something in this chapter that is slightly like higher stakes than just meaningless nothing, and that is that Kitty invited their neighbor over for dinner as well for her birthday, and she's kind of trying to set her up with their dad, which I kind of saw coming earlier in the story, because they were being a little flirty with each other, the dad and the neighbor. So that might be something, but again, besides that, it's just food and nothing. Oh yay, we got to see what Lara Jean is setting out to wear for school the next day. Always my favorite part of this book is how often we get to hear about what they're eating and exactly what outfit she's planning to wear to school the next day. It's so like meaningful, and there's a lot of symbolism there in the types of outfits she wears, and most of the symbolism, I think, is trying to tell us that she is actually a 10-year-old child trapped in a teenager's body. Alright, so I'm gonna stop there. I'm done with chapter 18, and like the little subplot with the girls trying to set up their dad with this woman is kind of cute, and like at least it's something interesting and relatively important, but I just can't get over like just the way she ends her chapters. And there's just, I guess, one thing I hadn't really I hadn't pinpointed yet what this was that I didn't like, but I just realized that there is so little narration from Lara Jean at all. There is lots of like, you know, descriptions of like, in that kind of narration, like descriptions of what people are eating and what people are doing, but there are very few like times where we're really like just getting into Lara Jean's psyche and her thoughts, and it just reads as really flat and weird to me. It's just so much like, this is the end of this chapter, so I'm just gonna read this last paragraph. So they're talking about the reasons they're not sure if this woman is going to be right for their dad, and okay, so I'll just start reading here. Let's keep inviting her to things and see what happens, I say, picking up my hairbrush. Hey, do you think if you watched a video you could give me a little side cornrow? I could give it a shot, Kitty says. curl the ends first and then check with me after I watch my shows. Got it. And that's the end of the chapter. Now, doesn't that feel odd? Maybe it's just me, but it feels strange. It feels like, what the heck was the end of that there? Like, what? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's like something that I feel like characters would say to each other because they're sisters, and you know, they talk about, hey, will you do my hair tomorrow? And like, that's a fine line, but to end a chapter there, it just feels weird. It feels like, why not, you know, have Lara Jean climb into bed and then we can hear what she's thinking about her dad, like, starting to date again and how she feels about that. And like, we just get so little of that, and it just seems like such a waste, and it highly contributes to my feelings of Lara Jean being such a flat, boring, and immature, underdeveloped character, because I don't really know anything about her, and I don't get to hear what she's thinking or feeling hardly ever, and I'm just constantly hearing about what she's doing, where she's going, what she's wearing, what she's eating, what other people are saying, and like, that's it. It's just not good writing is what it is. It's really not. I don't know that I've ever read a book that was this just bland and boring. Like, I've read a lot of books that are bad for other reasons, but I don't know that I've ever read a book that is this, except maybe stuff that was written by like really inexperienced authors. But this is not an inexperienced author. This is an extremely popular book, and that is what bugs me so much. I don't understand at all how this is so popular. Makes zero sense. But anyway, I'm gonna put a bookmark in there for now at the beginning of chapter 19, because I have to do some other things tonight before I have to go to bed. So that is it for now, and I will see you next time. Good morning, everybody. It is the morning time, and I just woke up, so I figured I'd start my day off terribly by reading some of this book. So I was talking to a friend on Instagram yesterday about this book, and he mentioned that there's lots of mixed reviews on it, and that a lot of people have said that it should have just been one book, and it shouldn't have been dragged out into a series. And that is exactly what it is. I mean, I didn't really like the first book either, but at least the first book had a story. It had like an overall plot arc, and like things were happening. This book, it just feels like, you know, what it feels like is, okay, so as an author, I'm currently writing a sequel and to my debut novel, Keep No Record. The sequel's called Broken Together, and most like book series I see are 3 books long, not 2. So I had toyed with the idea of doing a third one, and I had kind of been keeping in the back of my mind, you know, what would the third book be about? And I have a lot of really cute, fun scenes in my head that would be in the third book that I absolutely love. I love these scenes. They're really cute. They're like, I know exactly, like, even the words of how I would write it, and it would be a blast. But I only have a handful of scenes in mind to do, so I'm not gonna make an entire book just because I have like a few cute little scenes. Because it's just like, I have these characters that I love, and I kind of want to keep thinking about them, so I've continued to think about, well, what would their life be like after this book? My current book, Broken Together, after that book is over, what are their lives going to be like? And I've thought up some things about what their life would be like, but there's no story there. Like, there's no overall plot arc of a book. Like, my second book, there is a story. It is important. I've actually questioned that myself. Like, am I just
kind of squeezing something out that doesn't need to be done, or is there an actual story here that's different from the first book and it's not just continuing because I like this character and I want to keep playing with him. But there is an actual story in Broken Together, and it's an important story that I really love, and I'm excited for people to read it. But if I were to try to do a third book, it would not be that. It would just be, I don't want to let go of these characters yet. And that's what this book is, completely. It's just not a story. There has not been any plot. I'm on about to start chapter 19, and there has been absolutely no plot to this entire book. None at all whatsoever. If I was reading this book just on my own, not for this video, I would not continue reading it because it's just bland and boring and there is no plot. I don't care what happens to these people. You know, I'm curious now to read like the front blurb, or oh, it's on the back too, I guess. Or no, they're different. I'm gonna read it really quick and see what did she say the plot of this book was going to be. Huh. That's interesting. Okay, usually I don't like to go back and read like the blurbs while I'm reading a book because I like to be surprised. It's kind of how I don't watch movie trailers for movies that I know I want to see, because all it's gonna do is like spoil certain things or show me scenes that then aren't gonna be as cool when I actually see the movie. So if I'm already reading a book and I kind of forgot what it's about, I'll just keep reading instead of going back to read the blurb. But this is interesting because this says, so it says, they were just pretending until they weren't. And now Lara Jean has to learn what it's like to be in a real relationship, not just a make-believe one. But when another boy from her past returns to her life, Lara Jean's feelings for him suddenly return too. Can a girl be in love with two boys at once? That completely threw me for a loop when I read that just now, because I've had absolutely no hint of that storyline at all, and I'm about to start chapter 19. Why? Why the heck? I definitely felt like that in the first book too. Like, she just... There was so much in the beginning of the book that was just not even getting into the whole love letter thing at all. And it was like, okay, like, this is what I picked this book up for. And to be fair, I do really like jumping right into things, and I don't really like stories that drag out the introduction period too long. But this is way too long. This is all the book that I've read. I've read 18 chapters, and I don't even know who this boy is going to be, and we haven't seen any hints of her feelings for him. And maybe that would be fine if there were other interesting things happening, but there aren't. It's just boring nothingness that means nothing. So it's like, if you have a story, like this other boy who's gonna come along, I'm assuming it's probably gonna be Josh. If this other boy is gonna come along, then why did you spend so much time just talking about nothing instead of introducing the story? Like, if I was reading this without doing these videos, I would stop reading it right now because I would be like, well, this book has no story. What's the point? But now I'm actually kind of interested to see what the story is going to be, because that blurb sounds kind of interesting. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking. This is getting way too long. It's like, I've been talking for 7.5 minutes. Okay, we need to get to reading. So, Lara Jean just said that the woman across the street who her little sister's trying to set up their dad with, she was talking about how she dresses too young and that she felt a little uncomfortable when she said that they shop at the same places. And she said, does that mean that she dresses too young or I dress too old? Girl, you do not dress too old. Trust me. I've heard many people say this, and I completely agree that Lara Jean, like, the description of Lara Jean's clothes is like she's a little girl or something. So you definitely don't dress too old. But then she says that Chris calls her style Granny meets little girl chic. That that actually is pretty descriptive, which, like, maybe I actually kind of appreciate that line, I guess. The author, at least, and Lara Jean is self-aware enough to know that, I guess, she is aware that she dresses like a little girl. But, I don't know. It's weird. Alright, so chapter 18 was actually, or 19, sorry. Chapter 19 was actually pretty good. It had some substance. She was talking to her sister Margot on like a video chat, I think. Maybe it was just on the phone. No, it was video chat. Anyway, yeah, they were talking about how Kitty is trying to set their dad up with this woman, and how maybe their dad needs to get back out there, and that Kitty might be kind of searching for a mother figure because she's trying so hard to get her dad to date, and then Margot mentioned like a new boy that she met, and that they're gonna go out that night. And anyway, it was a nice chapter. That one was actually like important stuff, and yeah, it was pretty good, I guess. Nothing really negative to say about it. So I'm gonna do one more chapter and then I have to go. Oh, this chapter is 2 pages long. That always happens. I'm like, okay, just one more, and then it's like, or yeah, that's whatever. Okay. So I know I keep reading a lot of like pieces of this story, which might be annoying, but I feel like there's no other way to get across why it's so blandly written. Because, okay, so this chapter, if you can call it that, it's 2 pages of like one scene. I don't know why it was a whole chapter. It shouldn't have been. But anyway, Kitty asks if she should send their Miss Rothschild. I've avoided saying that name because it's hard for me to say. If she should send her a valentine on their dad's behalf, and Lara Jean says no, and that people will find their way to each other if they're meant to be. And she says, would you and Peter have found your way to each other if I hadn't sent those letters? And they just keep talking. It's like basically the whole thing is all dialogue until they start like wrestling and tickling each other. And then at the very end we get one little paragraph of Lara Jean's thoughts. And this is the thing, like Lara Jean's thoughts are just so, whenever we do get her thoughts, it's just so telly, and it's so brief, and it's just bland. Like, okay, this is all we get of what Lara Jean thought about Kitty, what Kitty just said about her and Peter. This is it. If Kitty hadn't sent those letters, would Peter and I still have found our way to each other? My first impulse is to say no, but maybe we would have kept going down different paths and converged at some other fork in the road. Or maybe not, but either way, we're here now. That's it. That's the end of the chapter. And if that doesn't sound bland to you, then I don't know what to say, because it's just like, it's just so boring. It's like, that's all we get of her thoughts. Would we have been together if she hadn't sent the letters? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, but here we are. And that's it. Like, what kind of boring thing is that to say? It's like this whole chapter, that was the only point, really, that I think the author was trying to make, was for Lara Jean to think about, like, would she have ended up with Peter if Kitty hadn't, like, pushed her? And that's all we got from that point, was that one tiny little paragraph of, I don't know, maybe, maybe not, whatever. And so it just makes the whole chapter, 2 pages, feel completely pointless. So, okay, I guess I'm gonna stop, or maybe I'll do one more. I feel like if I do one more, I'm gonna do like a lot more, because the next 2 chapters after that one are both each like less than 2 pages long. Look, I have no problem with short chapters, but short chapters that feel so pointless feel extra pointless when they're so short. It's like, okay, we could have just not written that 2 pages, or we could have condensed that into like a paragraph and stuck it into the next chapter or something. Like, if you're gonna try to make a point about Lara Jean, you know, wondering if she and Peter would have ended up together if it wasn't for Kitty, and maybe thinking about the fact that, you know, maybe she's not, what's the word, like, this isn't the word I'm trying to think of, but maybe she's not outgoing enough, and maybe she needs to, like, put herself out there more, because this really, in her opinion, really good thing happened with her and Peter, but it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Kitty, because she wouldn't have put herself out there like that. And, you know, she could be thinking more about what the consequences could have been for her not putting herself out there and being too guarded. And maybe this could be an opportunity for her to declare that she's gonna try harder to not be so guarded, and to put herself out there more, and, you know, take risks, because she has this really awesome thing that she wouldn't have if she had continued to be guarded, and if Kitty hadn't pushed her. Like, there's so many thoughts that could be explored there, and instead we got like a super tiny paragraph that was like, I wonder if Peter and I would have been together if it wasn't for Kitty. I don't know, maybe, but maybe not. Who knows? Like, what was the point of that entire chapter if that was all we were gonna get? I don't understand. I continue to not understand how anyone thinks this is good writing. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop now because I gotta go have breakfast. So I will get back to y'all later. Hello! It is later now, so time to read some more of this book. We are on chapter 21, which is actually slightly longer than 2 pages this time. But then the next 2 chapters after that are a page and a half each. So, think of that what you will. So Lara Jean is at Bellevue with her best friend in the world, Old Lady Stormy, who this is the second time we've seen her. But anyway, they're talking about Peter, of course, and Stormy says something about the thrill of a boy putting his hands on you for the first time. And Lara Jean says to herself, I do know that thrill. I remember it perfectly, and I would even if it hadn't been caught on camera. Yeah. Which confirms my suspicion that there's no way it would take her an entire freaking page of super long description of the people in the video she was watching to realize that it was her and Peter. That was just the dumbest thing ever. So this chapter provided a rare instance of us actually getting to hear some of Lara Jean's thoughts for once. There's like an entire, I'd say like this whole half of a page and this part right here is all her thoughts on like dating and sex, and like that she doesn't want to go too far too fast, and actually like a fairly good metaphor here, like comparing, I don't know how to sum it up, but there's a metaphor that I actually liked, and I will clarify that I love metaphors, but I don't like similes when they're just tossed out there and it feels unnatural and weird. Metaphors, though, I do really enjoy. So, yeah, that was this chapter. She was talking to Stormy about boys and sex, and because of course that's all that Lara Jean ever like talks or thinks about in her life. She doesn't have anything else going on except baking snickerdoodles and picking out outfits for her next day at school. So, on to chapter 22. Chapter 22. Okay, so I just realized when this chapter started, I realized something that I kind of, again, another thing I couldn't really pinpoint what it was that bothered me. I feel like this author jumps into like well, actually, this is weird because I feel like she goes from either writing entire scenes that are just boring and completely pointless to jumping into a scene at the beginning of a chapter that just starts off right with the frisky part. Like, this chapter started, Peter and I are at Starbucks sitting side by side studying for a chemistry exam. Idly, he puts his arm around my chair and starts twisting my hair around his pencil and letting it unfurl like a slice of ribbon. And then they kiss, and I haven't read the rest of the chapter yet, but it's like this long, so that's gonna be the whole chapter, is that scene. And that is just weird to me. Like, it just feels so forced and strange and not naturally occurring when you just start out a chapter like, oh, we're sitting by each other and he's like touching me and then we kiss and then that's it and that's the entire chapter. It's like, why didn't you just like seamlessly fold that in to the story as a whole and to like a larger chapter that had more of a purpose than that? And I know the answer to that is because there is no larger purpose to the story. There's nothing else happening besides Peter and Lara Jean being cute and liking each other, and that's it. And so it's just, there's no way to like, I mean, there are better ways to write this, even if that is the only thing that's going on, but it's just like so forced and inorganic. I know I've said that word so many times, but it's just the word to describe this book. Like, it's just weird to me to have that be the entire chapter. Okay, so they were kissing, they're trying to study, and he was like kissing on her neck, and she was like saying, stop, I'm trying to study. And then she said that she told him from the start that she doesn't like PDA, which is true. She has made that pretty clear, and I hope he would respect that. Like, I do see, you know, there's some benefit, I guess, to people trying to push you out of your shell, but some people just really don't like PDA and aren't very comfortable with it. I'm not very comfortable with PDA. I like my husband holding my hand or something, but I wouldn't want him like kissing my neck or something in the middle of Starbucks while we're like trying to work. So, you know, anyway. But then they're talking, and at one point she says, "You're such a baby," I say, pinching his nose hard. What? What? Who does that? And what? I don't... I literally have no words to describe, like, I just don't... That's such a weird thing to say. Who does that? You're just talking to someone and you're kind of like playfully arguing and then you pinch their nose while you're talking? Is that a thing any human person has done ever? Because I don't think I've ever seen that. So, oh my gosh. And then of course he gets a text message and then he like answers it really quick and frowns, and so of course now she's worried about who he's texting, because every single positive encounter with Peter has to end with either an argument over something dumb or her doubting him and, you know, being unsure of their relationship status. And I'm just tired. I'm tired of it. It's just the same drama and crap over and over, and I'm over it.
Alright, you guys, so that's gonna be it for this week's video. Things are getting much more dramatic, but also a little bit better, but also I'm really over it in general. So I'll see you next time for the next installment of this series. Bye!